What's going on, everyone? So the Phoenix Suns have a lot to figure out this offseason. They really need to start building a competitive team around Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I'm interested to see what they do with Chris Paul. I really think that they're going to try to move off of Chris Paul, and if they can't move off of him, I actually think that they're just going to buy him out of his contract. He only has a partially guaranteed deal, so I don't think that they're going to keep him around. The next year, he has a non-guaranteed deal, so I could see maybe a team that wants to unload some assets, maybe willing to take on Chris Paul if the Phoenix Suns are willing to add and attach some assets. This new owner for the Phoenix Suns is willing to go all in and wants to win an NBA championship, trying to get Phoenix there first. Basically push all the chips to the table for Kevin Durant. Fired Monty Williams, which was super surprising. I will be shocked if DeAndre Ayton is on the Phoenix Suns at the start of the season, but we'll touch on that here in a second. They did hire Frank Vogel, which, as a Laker fan, I think is an interesting hire. I think Frank Vogel is a good coach. I don't know if he's the right coach for Phoenix. I think Monty Williams is a better coach than Frank Vogel is. Again, Frank Vogel's good. I think he's a great defensive coach. I think he's going to have these guys playing some really good defense, some really solid defense. But again, I don't think he's really an upgrade over Monty Williams. But hey, they hired Frank Vogel. He's going to round out his staff. If they can put together the right pieces, the right staff around Frank Vogel, I think that he has a lot of potential with this roster. My other concern with Frank Vogel is that he's a guy that is very passive at times, right? He doesn't like confrontation a lot, which was a problem with him and the Lakers. Jason Kidd was the voice for the players. He was the kind of guy that the players confided in. I don't think it's a coincidence that when Jason Kidd left, Frank Vogel and the Lakers just went completely downhill. So that's something to keep in mind because, again, Frank Vogel, you got a lot of strong personalities on the Phoenix Suns. So is Frank Vogel going to be able to be the guy that can be the voice and kind of push back and, be that guy? I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. At least they answered their coaching question. That's a big step in the right direction. Next question is, what do you do with the rest of the roster? Well, one of the big things that is going around right now is Kyrie Irving to the Phoenix Suns, right? There is a lot of talk about the potential of Kyrie Irving going to the Phoenix Suns. Now, Phoenix isn't going to be able to just sign him outright. And it begs the question of well, then who else is on the roster, right? Because at that point, first off, you're losing Chris Paul for sure, right? Because you're not going to have Chris Paul, Kyrie Irving, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, right? I don't even think they can because they would end up being hard capped. So realistically, you would have to either A, buy out Chris Paul, or B, find a trade for Chris Paul. One or the other. Chris Paul's gone is my point. And then secondly, Kyrie has to want to go to Phoenix. Now, Kevin Durant is there, so makes sense. But does Kevin Durant still want to play with Kyrie Irving after the whole Brooklyn fiasco? Does Phoenix want that to happen? Now, Devin Booker, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant on the same team, good luck trying to stop that. That offense is going to be an offensive juggernaut for sure, without a doubt. Defense is probably terrible, but, you have to be able to outscore them. And it also depends on the talent that's around them. Now, you're basically just looking at vet minimums at that point. It's basically these three and a bunch of vet minimums. But under the right circumstances, that could be pretty good. I mean, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, just the two of them, were able to get them to the second round and put up a pretty decent fight against the Denver Nuggets, who I think are going to win the NBA championship. Now, how do you get there? It's a package centered around DeAndre Ayton for sure. And I think it makes a world of sense. Now look, I am a Laker fan, right? Again, mentioned it earlier. Lots of talks about Kyrie Irving heading to the Lakers and that the Lakers would work out some sort of sign and trade. Dallas and the Phoenix Suns make more sense, right? Because Dallas could use a center like DeAndre Ayton. DeAndre Ayton and Luka make a lot of sense, right? They also kind of want to move off Christian Wood. So you basically would have your young guard, and Luka. Yeah, he's the size of a forward, but he's their point guard. And then you'd have DeAndre Ayton, your center of the future. Now you're just kind of rounding out the roster with those two. So that makes a lot of sense. That's more valuable, in my opinion, than what the Lakers could give in like a D'Lo or cap relief. So, I mean, if I remove my bias and I look at the full picture, Dallas sign and trade makes a lot more sense than the Lakers does if Dallas is willing to trade DeAndre Ayton for Kyrie Irving. It makes a lot of sense for Phoenix because it's like, what are you going to get for DeAndre Ayton? Now, I think DeAndre Ayton is very likely the piece that they use as the trade chip to get the roster rounded out. But like I said, what is that? Are you trading DeAndre Ayton for like two role guys? Two rotation guys? Because you're not going to be able to get another like legit star for DeAndre Ayton. You're just not. Like, who's packaging up a bunch of stuff to send for DeAndre Ayton? No, he's been a locker room issue. He doesn't want to be in Phoenix. Phoenix knows it. Phoenix doesn't want him. He doesn't want to be there. Phoenix needs to get him off of that roster because Frank Vogel, that's the last thing Frank Vogel needs. The Phoenix Suns need to get rid of DeAndre Ayton. And so what could you get for DeAndre Ayton that would be better than Kyrie Irving? Probably not much, if anything, right? Like, again, I don't know. Like, maybe you could look at it as like, well, it'd be better to get more depth. So, like, if you could get two really productive guys, that might be better for the Phoenix Suns in general or as a whole than it is for than just to get Kyrie Irving. Okay, like, I could understand that. That makes sense. But for Dallas, you're probably not getting better than that. Like, so I understand why this is like a rumor and like a rumor that's gaining a lot of traction. Because it's like, if you're Dallas, it's like, what are you going to get that's better than DeAndre Ayton for Kyrie Irving? You're probably not getting much, if anything. You run the risk of losing Kyrie Irving, period. Phoenix would probably pay him a max, so you just give him the max. Kyrie gets what he wants. You basically turned Finney Smith into DeAndre Ayton in the grand scope of things. You get your center of the future. You basically got your two guys now that you can build around. You basically got your establishment, and now you can start looking to round out the rest of your roster for now and the future. Like, I think that's a good position for Dallas to be in. I really do. I really do. And I think you could sell Luka on it. All right, that's the thing. So these two in a trade, Kyrie gets to go play with Kevin Durant again. He gets his money because he got an older owner that's willing to spend and wants to, try to win a chip. You now have the best trio in the league. You might have the best scoring trio ever, right? I mean, we talked about that when James Harden went there. At this stage in Devin Booker's career, like, that's pretty good. The problem is, the concern is who's the number 1, 2, and 3, right? Because you have to have that establishment. I could see KD kind of falling into that third option role, which is pretty interesting. But also, who's the facilitator, right? Like, who kind of balances it all out, right? Like, if you had Chris Paul on like a vet minimum, I think that could work because, like, you could have Chris Paul kind of be the facilitator, but then you're like super small. But again, like, how do you outscore him? I don't know. It makes sense for Phoenix to an extent. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Phoenix would want that to happen. I don't really think Kevin Durant would necessarily want that to happen. I think that this is kind of just conversation rather than something that may or may not develop. But for Dallas, I think it makes the most sense, right? Out of everybody, I think Dallas, if you're Dallas, you're like, yeah, like, where can I sign that? Can we do this right now? Right? Like, even just from a long-term play, even if you think Kyrie and Luka might work, do you really think the two of them can win a championship? I don't know. right? And not saying that DeAndre Ayton and Luka can win a championship, like them as the main duo, but at least you have that stability and you have that understanding. And now you kind of have the time. You have like the foundation, I guess, with Ayton's age and Luka's age. Like you got that duo for the next like 10 years if you want to. And then you're just kind of putting all the other pieces around it. So for Dallas, I think it makes a world of sense. For Phoenix, not so much. But if it did happen, I think it'd be really interesting. I think it might be like either a dumpster fire or it goes great. I think Phoenix is either like terrifying or it's just like, why did Phoenix do this? Like I really do. I think it'd go one way or the other. But my guess is it doesn't happen. I don't even think that they explore it. I think that this is that like, just, hey, let's have a headline and see if it goes viral. And it did. That's kind of what I think this is. I think this is more in that regard. But as always, this is a discussion. So I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think, yeah, do this deal? Do you think no? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Would you want to see Kyrie on the Phoenix Suns? Would you want to see Ayton in Dallas? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, let me know.